Dear students, in this presentation, I will speak about the third sector features. As you know, and as we also used to call third sector with many other features and many other characteristics. So, for example, we can also use for the naming of the third sector the synonym non-profit, non-state, civic, volunteer, independent, tax-free, or private non-profit. Each of this feature or each of this name of the third sector, it's like a recognition of some specifics of the third sector. So for example, the non-profit emphasize that unlike commercial and for-profit organization, the aim of the non-profit organization is not to generate the profit, or the profit which is generated is not distributed among all owners. Also, the feature non-state, for example, is speaking about that it's like the organizations that are part of the third sector are separated from the state or from the government, so they are not tied to the decision of any state body or are not directly subordinate to it. Civic third sector, so it means this is the feature that in third sector mainly the people, ordinary people are active or activists, that they are, and also the third sector is part of the civil society. Also, the other features means like different characteristics of the third sector that we will speak about in this presentation. Also, from the professional literature dealing with the third sector, we can find several definitions, but individual authors or individual documents which are mentioning the non-profit organizations or the third sector organizations. So, for example, the special recommendation for the non-profit organizations is defining the term non-profit organization as a term referring to the legal entities or organizations that are primarily engaged in obtaining and redistributing funds for charitable purposes, for the development of the religion, culture, education, or for social purposes, or for the realization of other good deeds. Also, the United Nations use the similar definition of the non-profit organizations, as you can see also on this slide. And the last definition, which you can see here, it's from the international project, Third Sector Impact, which you can find on the website that you have also in the references. And in this case, the authors or people who are engaging in this research are trying also to put the definition of the third sector, and on which they will be able to include the several entities in the different countries in the nonprofit sector. So, for example, their definition of the third sector is that these organizations are institutionally separated from the government, through they may have varying degrees of the close working relationship with the state. So it doesn't mean that if the organization is cooperating on like projects, or it's also involved in the creation of the public policy, it doesn't mean that it's not governmental. It should be institutionally separated from the government. They also speak about the organization who enjoy a significant degree of the self-governance, and they all embrace some meaningful degree of voluntary involvement. So as you can see in this definition, they also paying attention on some other features of the third sector organizations. When people defining the third sector, as you can see also from the previous definitions, many times they are using some features based on which they are trying to describe which organizations can be part of the third sector or we cannot. So the mostly or widely really spread the definition is the definition of the third sector based on these 5 basic features. These 5 basic features of the organization were used in international research about the third sector. which was coordinated by the Lester Salomon and Helmut Anheier, and which included like many countries all around the world, and it was aimed to compare the third sector in like several countries in all of the regions of the world. So the first feature of the organizations based on this definition is that the organizations who are non-profit should have the formal structure, or they should also pass some process of institutionalization. So for example, it means that they are formalized, somehow institutionalized, they have legal personality, or they can enter into legal relationships, and legal norms require them to squeeze into statutory organizational norms. So for example, in many countries, there are some specific laws which are defining like different legal forms of the organizations, and which also set up the process how to establish the organization, what you need to do to register organization, or what are other conditions to set up some civic association or foundation or any other type of the non-profit organization. The second feature of the third sector organization is that they are private. So it means this is the non-state or non-governmental character. So as I also explained before, it means that they are institutionally separated from the state. So for example, in the boards of the directors or some of the boards in the organization is nobody who is nominated as a government official. It doesn't mean that the government official cannot be the part of some boards of the NGOs, but they are not part of these NGOs as representatives of the state. The private non-state character also means that they are based on the self-governing. This also does not mean that they cannot receive any contributions from the state budget or regional or local or municipal resources, but they are like institutionally separated. The third feature, it means like non-profit. It's also usually used for referring to the feature of the organizations that they are respecting the non-profit distribution of the funds. And also their goal or their main mission is not to make a profit as in the profit organizations for the like private enrichment, but also any profit which they gain in accordance is like distributed or is used in accordance with the statute of the organization and is returned back to the organization, which is like used related with the basic mission of the organization or the programs which is providing. The fourth feature, we can say that it's independent, functioning on the principle of the self-government. So the organizations are not controlled by any state or institutions outside them. So it means that they have the mechanism of the self-government. They create their own control mechanism, but also mechanism responsible for the decision-making process and also for providing the services or doing the advocacy which are responsible for. Many times it doesn't mean also that they are not controlled at all, but they are controlled, for example, by the donors or contributors. So, and they also need to behave according to the relevant legal registrations and regulations or they founding documents. The organizations are also based on the membership principle. So this is also one of the feature or mechanism of the functioning of the organizations. So it means that the system of the or mechanism of the setting up the organization and operation is based or adapted by the mutual agreement of the members, and it should be respected by all members of the organizations. So mostly these rules are formulated in the form of the adapted documents such as statute, state, or memorandum of the association, or it can have also the different names. And the last feature of this list of the features is the voluntary character. Also, this feature can be really broadly understood because the involvement of the volunteers in the activities of the organizations can really vary. On one side of the spectrum, we can have the organizations who are really voluntary based and they do not have any professional or paid staff. And on the other hand, we also can have the organizations which are like professionally based, which also have only employees and the paid staff, and they do not work with the volunteers. But what we can say that a voluntary character, it can mean that also many times in these self-governing bodies, for example, as a boards, the people are not working as a paid people, but they are mostly working as a volunteers, or also when the people deciding that they want to set up the organization, mostly at the beginning of the organization, they are working without any financial gain or without any financial contributions. Also, voluntary character, it means that they have the contribution like as a donations from the foundations or from the sources as a like public collections, and they also can organize some voluntary activities. As I mentioned before, these 5 basic features were adapted in 1999. And from this time, we also have some other like research or some other definitions that they are trying to propose some other features based on which the organizations should be recognized as a part of the third sector. So, for example, Handbook on Nonprofit Institution in the System of the National Accounts is mentioning like some other features. So, for example, they like recognize the organizations which are formally or legally constituted, and they are also private, self-governing, non-profit distributing, and engaging people without compulsion. So you see that these 4 features are similar to the features that I presented also before. In the newest research by Solomon and Sokolowski, to be considered as a part of the third sector, entities must be the organizations, whether formal and informal. So you see there is a difference because in the definition from 1999, we only had the organizations which are formal, but now they also recognize that the big space of the third sector are also informal organizations which are not registered and they didn't go through the process of the institutionalization on a legal basis, but they can work as informal groups, for example. The same feature is that they are private, so it means that they are separated from the state. They are self-governed, so they have this mechanism of the control, of the decision making, and of the like other bodies which are needed in the self-governing organizations. That I know that these organizations are also non-compulsory, so it means that nobody can force you to be the part of the non-profit organization. And a little bit, they are describing a little bit this non-profit feature, and it means that these organizations are totally or significantly limited from the distributing any surplus they earn to the investor, members, or other stakeholders. So as you can see, so they are not speaking about that they cannot have the profit or that they are not from the beginning set up to have the profit, but they are speaking about the distribution of the profit. Definition, it's also important that each of these features then had to be translated into more precise operational terms because this kind of the organization can differ in each country. As you can see from the previous definition, we can say that there is a wide agreement on 4 underlining conceptual features of the nonprofit organizations, which we can name as a privateness, public purpose or nonprofit, self-governed, and free choice. These 4 features are mentioned in all of the definitions that were presented also in this presentation. Despite these features of the organization, there are also some other features of the nonprofit organization, and you can see also in this slide. And it means that each of the features also speaks about some of the specific of the functioning of the organization. And for these features, you will have also the assignment to this lesson that you will think about the how this feature can look like in the practice of the organizations. So thanks a lot. This is the literature which you can find more information about the features of the third sector.